Key West. The beauty of this southernmost city in the U.S. is astounding. Colorful coral reefs, clear blue water, and jaw-dropping sunsets are just a few of the reasons that beach lovers, scientists, politicians, artists, and writers have chosen Key West as their home. Key West is an island. In fact, a key is a small, low-lying coral island that is usually sandy. The island is only 4 miles long by 1 mile wide and is just under 100 miles north of Cuba and 130 miles southwest of Miami. Key West, Dredger's Key, Fleming Key, Sunset Key, and Stock Island together constitute the city of Key West. Key West geography, particularly its proximity to Cuba and access to fresh seafood, has influenced its local cuisine. We can't wait to try some of their signature dishes. And in between recipes, we'll be visiting some of Key West's most notable sites to explore its history, learn about some groundbreaking marine science, and get to know one of America's most famous writers. So here's to a twice as good taste of Key West. The coral reef of the Florida Keys is one of Florida's treasures. So here's what's really amazing about coral reefs. They cover less than 1% of the ocean floors, but support an estimated 25% of all known marine species. What's not good is the corals in the Florida Keys have experienced coral loss in recent decades. In fact, Florida's coral reef has lost all but 2% of its living coral cover and is struggling to survive. So we've come to Mote Marine Laboratory to learn about the innovative things they're doing to try and reverse this damage.
Most people think that corals are plants or rocks, but they're actually animals. The way that they grow is by sheeting out their tissue, which is this brown that you see here, and then they build their skeleton up from there. Microfragmentation is basically where we cut this into tinier pieces, open up its tissue, and it's like when you get a cut on your skin and your skin grows back faster. That's what we're asking the coral to do through this process of microfragmentation. I can hit my skin on here and it's not gonna cut me. You want to cut this one and cut it right here, and then you'll have 2 microfragments.
Okay, that sounds great.
Nice job. Perfect. Go ahead and baste them off.
Is that just water you're squeezing onto them, or?
Yeah, so this is salt water from the tanks that we're about to put them in. Then I'll take my marine super glue, put it on a fresh plug, do a very small dollop, and then I'll put our microfrag right on top of that, like so.
Should they grow all over this little piece?
Yep, so because we opened up the tissue on all 4 sides, basically it's going to spread out in all directions and then grow up from there.
Can you tell us about what's in these tanks here?
Yeah, these are corals that have gone through the microfragmentation process and are now in their grow out period. So basically we keep them in optimal conditions that encourage coral growth, and once they get to be about the size of a silver dollar, that's when we outplant them. We have different parameters that we kind of select for depending on the coral species, but the general process is we find a dead coral head, one that has passed away, but ones that we want to be able to reskin, and basically we'll drill holes that are that silver dollar size. And then we will put the corals in and make sure that they are cemented in place with marine epoxy.
Can you tell us why the original coral died and how we can prevent that from happening with this new coral?
Our Florida reef tract has had a lot of things happen to it over the past few decades, anywhere from pollution to disease to hurricanes, and that's made it really hard for corals to grow. These corals that we have on our facility are put through resiliency screening. So basically resiliency is being able to bounce back from a stressor, whether that's changes in pH, so ocean acidification or temperature. We make sure that the corals that we grow and that we outplant have the best chance at life. The research that we do here with resiliency work informs what we as practitioners are able to do out in the wild.
Every important port has a great lighthouse, and many great lighthouses had a Fresnel lens. Science historian Teresa Levitt said, "The moment a Fresnel lens appeared at a location was the moment that region became linked into the world economy." That's why we wanted to visit with Corey Convertito, curator, Key West Art and Historical Society, at the Key West Lighthouse to hear the story of Augustin Jean Fresnel and his invention of the lens.
Up until Fresnel invents this lens, they had been using effectively large magnifying glasses with huge single pieces of glass, and they were really heavy. And Fresnel thought there were ways around that, ways to make them lighter, more effective. He created this system of prisms that would be a central light within this lens. And normally the light escapes to the top, to the bottom, out to the sides. And what the curvature and the prisms do is actually take all the light that would otherwise escape, and it bends the light. So instead of it going up and going straight up to space, it will bend the light and send it outward, and so it concentrates that light that otherwise is lost. And the really brilliant thing about what Fresnel designed is that all of these prisms that you see here are individual pieces, and so they were shaped by hand and put into this frame, and they could be disassembled, packed up, and shipped. So they would build these entire Fresnel lenses, but be able to disassemble, box them up, and ship them anywhere in the world.
So is this lens still relevant today?
Because of the advancement in navigation charts and GPS, lighthouses aren't as useful as they once were, but the science that Fresnel came up with and worked out is still used today and applied to other mediums.
The cuisine of Cuba became part of Key West food heritage when Cuban families began to settle on the island in the 1830s. The aromas of Cuban coffee, ropa vieja, black beans, and rice, among other Cuban favorites, can be found in the kitchen of El Mesón de Pepe, a local family-owned and operated Key West Cuban restaurant.
Hola.
Hola, nosotros estamos muy emocionadas de estar aquí hoy.
Gracias. Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how Mesón de Pepe got its name?
El Mesón de Pepe means La Casa de Pepe. Pepe is my dad. He came from Cuba in 1971. He brought all his experience and his knowledge from the family and our customs in Cuba. Today we have a Cuban mix, and that's how you can tell the fusion between Cuba and America in Key West. Classic Cuban sandwich is Cuban bread, ham, pork, sweet cheese, mustard, and pickles. And that in Key West, we do it with lettuce and tomato and mayo. First thing is fresh Cuban bread, okay? And then we do the ham, and then we have the fresh roast pork right from the oven. And then sweet cheese, mayo, mustard, pickles, tomatoes, lettuce. Then we put in the breast, and then we put like a little garlic with oil. And then we press it. We cut it in half. And then we put some mariquitas, and voila, ready.
Wow, this is so amazing. The different flavors of the ham and the cheese are so good together.
Gracias, muchas gracias.
De nada, fue muy divertido.
The spirit of Key West has long attracted artists and writers. Today, we've come to Hemingway House to learn more about the legendary American writer Ernest Hemingway.
How did Hemingway originally come to Key West?
From Paris via Havana, he just wanted to pick up his new car here in Key West and then drive to Kansas City with his pregnant wife, Pauline Pfeiffer. But when they arrived in Key West, Hemingway's car was not here, so they spent 3 weeks in Key West just waiting for this car, and in the meantime, Ernest Hemingway got hooked by fishing around Key West.
What books did Hemingway write while he was here?
Oh, he wrote a lot here in Key West. Green Hills of Africa, The Snows of Kilimanjaro, Death in the Afternoon, even short story, The Old Man and the Sea, who became Nobel Prize winner a couple of years later.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Hemingway cats?
He was a big-time cat lover, And here in Key West, he was given one special cat. Her name was Snow White, and she was polydactyl cat with extra toes. Polydactyl cats are six-toed cats. We have almost 60 descendants of Snow White here. They are all named after famous people from the Ernest Hemingway's time. So we have literary characters, we have actors, singers. This is Daisy Buchanan from The Great Gatsby.
Oh, how cute.
Joe DiMaggio, and here is Marilyn Monroe.
That sure was the cat's meow. You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, that was perfect.
All right, let's go. One of the best places to sample fresh Key West pinks is at Fisherman's Cafe in the historic Key West Seaport. Our friends at the Fisherman's Cafe are also known for their signature Lobster Enchilau Tacos, and we can't wait to try them.
I've brought out a couple of Fisherman's signature dishes.
Oh, it looks amazing.
Yes, it's so good.
We have here our blackened shrimp tacos, and then we have our Lobster Enchilau Tacos, which is a signature dish of ours. These are two of our favorites that are really was the essence of Fisherman's Cafe.
Key West pink shrimp, do they taste different than most shrimp?
They're Key West fresh pinks, and they have a flavor to me that's different from some of the other shrimp. For me, they're a little fatter, they're a little juicier, they're a little more succulent than some of the other shrimp. Get the grill nice and hot. Once the shrimp are seasoned, we put them on the grill. The key is not to overcook them, to keep them nice and moist. Kevin pulls them off the grill. We start the next process, which is putting together the tacos itself. Start with fresh flour tortilla, some mix of greens, fresh tomatoes, island avocado, the fresh Key West pinks. Make sure there's an abundance of delicious fresh shrimp. Add a little bacon for flavor. A little sauce. That's our secret sauce. All our sauces are secret sauces. And then we roll up all of that into one very hefty burrito taco style blackened shrimp enchilada. Now we wrap it up nice and tight because it's usually more than one person can eat. Cut it in half in case you want to share it with someone. See lots and lots of fresh shrimp, lots of great island veggies. We add to that now some fresh coleslaw we make here, homemade, and some yucca fries. They're an island tradition. We love the yucca root. It's like a potato, but it's a lot more flavor. And there's a classic Fisherman's Cafe Key West lunch. Should be an explosion of flavors going on. Key West style.
Wow, this is so flavorful.
Amazing.
Awesome.
You can really taste all the fresh ingredients.
Lobster Enchilau Tacos. And the key to that is lots of fresh local lobster. And a combination of spices and seasoning that we've developed over the years. We're at a place where we can put that in the deep fryer just long enough to keep it nice and moist. And you can see that we put a lot of lobster on our tacos. Now put some tortillas on the grill, get them nice and moist and hot. Now we start putting all these flavors together. Put a little homemade coleslaw. That's got a combination of great veggies in it. We put on the lobster. This is a secret sauce known as our Lobster Enchilau sauce. And we throw a little cilantro, parsley on, kind of finish it off. And we're gonna plate that with some fresh island plantanitos, as we'd say, but plantains as you may know them, and some lime for the lobster. And there you have it, a Fisherman's Cafe specialty. Tell me what you think.
Wow, this is so good. You can also really taste the freshness here in the lobster.
Of course, Hemingway was not the only famous 20th century icon to spend time in Key West. Many U.S. presidents have visited, including Taft, Eisenhower, Kennedy, Carter, and Clinton. However, it was President Truman who established a more permanent presence here. He spent 175 days of his presidency in Key West between 1946 and 1952 at the Harry S. Truman Little White House. We're excited to learn about his love for Key West from expert guide Sabrina Adorno.
He had a cold that would not go away in Washington, D.C.
So his good friend Fleet Admiral Chester Nimitz of Pacific Fleet fame in the Second World War basically says to the president, "We've got a great house down here, it's furnished for you, it's on a naval installation so it's plenty secure for the president, and the Key West weather is going to be great for your health." So Truman comes down here, absolutely falls in love with it, and comes back 10 more times for working vacations and 5 more times after his time in the White House. When President Truman came down here to visit, he was always wearing a full wool suit of the style of the time, of course, from Washington, D.C. So when he got to the little White House, he would change into something a little more comfortable, something that might have looked like this. These are great examples of what Truman would have called his Key West uniform.
Can you tell us about his iconic "The Buck Stops Here" sign?
Harry Truman's "Buck Stops Here" was kind of his motto, his catchphrase. The phrase comes from the old Wild West. When men would sit around the table and play card games, the man responsible for dealing the cards would have a knife with a buckhorn handle in the table right in front of him. And if he didn't want the responsibility of dealing the cards, he would pass the buck to the next person. This newspaper was printed, of course, when President Truman won his re-election in 1948. Now, this headline is obviously terribly incorrect because at that time, nearly the entire nation believed the Republican candidate Thomas Dewey was really going to win that election. He was ahead nearly the entire year. But President Truman swept through there at the very last minute, in large part thanks to his 1948 Whistle Stop campaign tour. On this front page alone, there are over 100 mistakes here in spelling, spacing, punctuation. There are even a few lines that are completely printed upside down. So here we have one of President Truman's presidential limousines, one of a set of 9 that were stationed in major cities all throughout the country during his time in office to be available for when he visited.
Thank you. I noticed there aren't any seatbelts in this car.
That's right. That was very typical for vehicles of Truman's time to not have safety features like that. This car has a limousine partition glass here between the back and the front, an intercom system so the president could talk to his driver, radio controls from the back seat as well. No power steering, but power windows, which was not typical for the time period. Girls, I know we're not in the Royal Rolls Royce, but we're in the presidential limousine, so let's do the wave.
Yes. The Everglades is a wetlands preserve in the southern part of Florida. It begins near Orlando with the Kissimmee River, then empties into the vast but shallow Lake Okeechobee. Water leaving Lake Okeechobee in the wet season forms a slow-moving river, 60 miles wide and over 100 miles long, but often only a few feet deep. It may require months or years to reach its final destination, Florida Bay, located to the west of the Florida Keys. US 1 runs 2,369 miles from Fort Kent, Maine at the Canadian border to Key West, making it the longest north-south road in the United States. Routes in the contiguous United States follow a grid pattern, in which odd-numbered routes run generally north to south, and even-numbered routes run generally east to west. While exceptions exist, generally odd numbers increase from east to west, starting with US 1, and even numbers tend to increase from north to south. You know the big green Persian limes you've seen in the grocery store? Those definitely aren't key limes. The limes grown in the Florida Keys are smaller, a little less tart, and a little more yellow. And the smell! They have a wonderful, distinctive aroma. In 1965, a Florida state representative introduced legislation calling for a fine against anyone advertising key lime pie not made with key limes. The bill failed. But in 2006, a bill did pass designating key lime pie the official Florida state pie. The folks at Key West Key Lime Pie Company are experts at all things key lime pie, and we came here to find out how they are made.
We're gonna grab our crust and fill our pans with our crust. Go ahead and grab a scoop of crust.
How high do you want to have it be?
You can put as much crust in as you want. You can always take it out when we're putting it in. Sometimes people like a little bit of crust, sometimes people like a lot of crust.
So this is graham crackers, and is it honey and butter, or what else is in this?
What we do, we make a homemade graham. So it's mainly flour, brown sugar, honey, and butter. So 4 main ingredients.
Pretty simple then.
Yeah, we're gonna pretty much pan the crust to the edges of the pan. This is like a perfection tin. gonna put it on top and pretty much press down. So once we press all this crust down, we get it where we want, we just pretty much lift it up, and we have this nice, beautiful crust. We bake them for 4 minutes at 350 degrees. Now that our crusts are cool, we're gonna fill our pies with our key lime pie filling.
Is that right?
Yeah, just about right. Looks good. I love topping. It's my favorite part of the day. We normally go around the outside of the pie, just like this. You're taking it home so you can make whatever you want. And I'm gonna make a little smiley face because I got a son at home, so.
Aw, that's
He's gonna get a smiley face. There you go. And you wanna pretty much hold it super tight up the top, and you're gonna guide with your bottom hand. Definitely like a pro. All right, so now we're gonna let them get frozen solid.
After making the traditional key lime pie, Sacred treated us to a taste test of all of their flavors.
We have our pies that we've made here, and then we have the mango key lime, which is my favorite fruit flavor. And then we also do a chocolate dip key lime pie on a stick, key lime pie frozen.
Looks so
And
good.
then our traditional key lime pie, we have strawberry key lime pie, and pineapple coconut key lime. Once we fill them, we put them in the freezers.
You can really taste the combination of the cream and the limes.
And don't forget about that graham cracker crust, it's my favorite.
Yes, it's really good as well. Greetings from Key West!
Key Lime Pie Company.
The Dry Tortugas are a small group of islands located about 67 miles west of Key West. Where did they get their unusual name? Well, dry comes from the lack of fresh water springs on the island, and tortugas is Spanish for turtles. With their surrounding waters, they constitute the Dry Tortugas National Park. Fort Jefferson, a massive but unfinished coastal fortress, is the largest brick masonry structure in the Western Hemisphere and is accessible only by seaplane or boat. Haiti Coelho is an engineer with the Florida Department of Transportation, or FDOT, who oversees the design and maintenance of bridges here in the Florida Keys.
US 1 is the main line for the Keys, and they provide access and connect all the islands through the length of the Keys.
So how many bridges are there in the Keys?
There are 58 state bridges in the Keys and 38 county and city bridges in the Keys.
Can you tell us about the 7 Mile Bridge?
There are actually 2 7-mile bridges. The old 7-mile bridge was built by Henry Flagler in the early 1900s. The new 7-mile bridge is actually only 6.7 miles long. Today, the old 7-mile bridge is used as a jogging and walking path and provides access to Pigeon Key.
One engineering feat necessary to make these amazing bridges possible and the Keys accessible is to be able to build bridges over deep water. There are others, but 3 common methods for building bridges over deep water are battered piles, cofferdams, and caissons. Battered piles are driven into the ground underwater using pile drivers. The piles are capped off and the bridge built on top of the capped piles. Cofferdams are temporary enclosures made by driving sheet piling into the bed of a body of water to form a watertight fence. The water is pumped out of the enclosure and the bridge is built in that dry section as if it is being worked on over dry land. A caisson is a structure shaped like a box, but which is open at the top and bottom. As more is dredged up, the caisson sinks and more sections are added to keep the top above water. More concrete is then poured into the caisson to form a solid post. Key West Butterfly and Nature Conservancy in Key West is home to over 50 species of butterflies from around the world. Their glass, temperature-controlled enclosure is a perfect habitat since butterflies are cold-blooded animals and can't regulate their own body temperatures. Butterflies employ their feet to taste their food. One of the fun surprises here at the conservatory is when one of these fantastic insects lands on you. Most likely it's in search of food, but it's fun to think that they're just saying hello. All butterflies begin as eggs, which are laid on the underside of a leaf. After hatching, the larvae begin eating. The larva will form a hard, protective covering called a cocoon or a chrysalis. When the adult insect leaves the pupa, it's called eclosion. The case is left behind, and the butterfly that emerges still has damp and crumpled wings. Once its wings reach their full size, the butterfly must rest for a few hours to allow its body to dry and harden before it can take its first flight. Key West is known for its beautiful sunsets, and many people come here to spot its elusive green flash. More science than magic, the green flash is an optical phenomenon that creates a distinct green spot visible for just a few seconds just above the sun's upper rim. How does it work? When conditions are favorable, for just a moment when the sun sets below or rises above the horizon, three things happen. Blue and violet light with their shorter wavelengths are scattered by the atmosphere. Red, orange, and yellow light are absorbed. And like magic, green light is left, creating a green flash. To understand Key West is to appreciate how artists, leaders, chefs, and scientists have used the natural environment here to create something truly special. It's a community that isn't just good, it's twice as good!
Twice as Good with Hadley and Delaney is brought to you by Mila. Immer besser, forever better. Mila. And by Cuties. Cute you can eat. Cuties.